The DC snipers John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo terrorized the Washington, D.C. area for 3 weeks in October 2002. The duo was responsible for the random shootings that resulted in the deaths of 10 people and the injury of 3 others. Ever heard of the DC snipers? I'm gonna tell you all about them. Before we get into what they did, let's take a dive into who they were as humans, beginning with Lee Boyd Malvo. He was born on February 18th, 1985 in Kensington, Jamaica. His parents didn't have the best relationship. His dad would end up leaving his mother when Lee Boyd was just 5 years old. His childhood wasn't easy. His mother's absence and the family difficult living conditions in Jamaica had a profound impact on him. According to a psychologist who examined Lee Boyd after his arrest, noted that he was deeply affected by his father's long absences and his mother's broken presence. Lee Boyd's mother would leave him for months at a time, and when she returned, he would sometimes threaten to kill himself, leading to physical punishment from his mother. It's worth noting that Lee Boyd witnessed a man being shot to death in Kensington, an event that left a lasting impression on him forever. His upbringing was tumultuous, absolutely horrible, characterized by instability, family separation, and exposure to violence. These experiences likely played a role in the shaping of what he did when he was older. While his mom left to illegally immigrate to the United States, Lee Boyd was left in the care of John Allen Muhammad, who had a really strong friendship with Lee Boyd's mom, and he was 25 years older than he was. The two would spend a lot of time together, with Muhammad basically raising Lee Boyd since his parents were virtually gone. Now, let me give you a brief rundown of who John Allen Muhammad was, who turned out to be the mastermind behind the DC attacks. John Allen Muhammad, who was born John Allen Williams, he was born on December 31st, 1960 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He too had a troubled childhood. His parents divorced when he was young, and he was raised by his mother. Muhammad's early life was marked by instability. We're starting to notice some similarities between Lee Boyd and Muhammad. He joined the Nation of Islam in 1987 and changed his name to John Allen Muhammad in October of 2001. Muhammad's personal life was horrendous, to say the least, absolutely horrendous. A failed marriage and a custody battle with his second wife. His relationship with his children was also strained, as custody battles with his ex-wife made things more difficult. Muhammad then took Lee Boyd with him to the United States, where they eventually settled in Bellingham, Washington. It was during this time that Muhammad began to have a strong influence over Lee. He began to brainwash him into his beliefs and converting him into Islam in March of 2001. The relationship between Lee Boyd and Muhammad evolved into a mentorship, with Muhammad exerting significant control and influence over Lee Boyd. Muhammad's transformation into one of the DC snipers, along with Lee Boyd, is a complex and tragic story. The motives behind the attacks were linked to Muhammad's desire for revenge against his ex-wife, as he sought to make the killings appear as random acts of violence. The plan was to create an army of black super children, 70 boys and 70 girls, who would flood into the United States from a secret compound in Canada to combat racial injustice and build a more perfect society from the bottom up. The plan would have cost millions, 10 million to be exact, because of course they planned everything out. Of course they didn't have $10 million to build their master plan, so they created another plan. They wanted to hold the government hostage in order to get the money they needed. If the money was not forthcoming from the government, they would move on to Baltimore, where they would plant improvised explosive devices loaded with ball bearings among crowds of children. So as you can see, they already have this desire to kill people. You know what I mean? Like, they already are, like, they're clearly showing that they have no remorse or decency for humans, as they already starting to create this plan to basically hijack the government into giving them millions of dollars. And if that didn't work, then they were going to kill children. Crazy stuff, man. Like, you can clearly see where their head is at and how they're thinking. The government would pay them to stop, and they would take the money, flee to Canada, and buy a plot of land. On that land, they would mold orphan children into militias, providing weapon training and revolutionary education. And when those children had become soldiers, they would be dispatched throughout the world to fight the enemies of black people and of the Islam. It's crazy that in his mind, he's thinking like, okay, I'm going to get these orphan kids and raise them to be soldiers to where they go and fight enemies of the black and Islam. But it's really crazy that they think this is a good plan. Like, they really do. And they were convinced that this was a good plan. Lee Boyd, who was 17 years old during this time, said he was very confident that this could be done. But of course, the plan is ridiculous and movie-like. So they resorted to Plan B, and Plan B was way more possible and did not require $10 million from the government. The two carried out their attacks using a diabolical method that allowed them to shoot from a concealed position. They used a 1990 blue Chevrolet Caprice, which was modified for them to be able to shoot their Bushmaster XM15 semi-automatic .223 caliber rifle from a hole near the license plate, which I'm not gonna lie, that is pretty damn cool. But it's just crazy to me how they thought that process out, where I'm gonna drill a hole near my license plate to just be able for my rifle, the barrel of my rifle to go through, which it's kind of neat. They named it the sniper's nest. Their little dugout in the car, they call it the sniper's nest. This allowed them to carry out the shootings from a hidden position in the vehicle, making it difficult for law enforcement to identify and apprehend them. So they definitely put some thought into what they were doing and how they were going to do it. The attacks were totally random, targeting and killing of everyday people as they went about their daily activities, such as putting groceries in their car, mowing the lawn, pumping gas. The shootings were carried out in broad daylight. That's the thing. Like, they didn't hang out and wait till night and try to catch people lacking. Like, they did this shit in broad daylight. And that is crazy to me. Over the next 3 weeks, Lee Boyd and Muhammad would kill 10 people, critically injuring 3 others, and cause a complete stoppage of mall strips and highway intersections as complete fear took over the nation.
The shooting started yesterday at 5:20 p.m. A bullet went through a window of this store, narrowly missing a clerk inside. It was the only miss. At 6:04 p.m., a middle-aged white man was killed outside of the supermarket. This morning, the murders resumed. At 7:41 a.m., another white man mowing his lawn. At 8:12 a.m., an Indian man gassing up his cab. Minutes later, at 8:37, an Hispanic woman sitting reading a book on a bench outside of a restaurant.
The young lady that I just seen about 5 minutes or 10 minutes ago off the bus was laying right there, and it was just terrible.
Just over an hour later, at 9:58 a.m., another single bullet, another victim, a woman cleaning her car at a gas station. Altogether, 6 shots, 5 apparently random victims within 16 hours. Police are stunned.
Their actions sparked a massive manhunt that was criticized as having flaws. Despite an apparent lack of progress publicly, federal authorities were making significant headway in their investigation and developed leads in the Washington State, Alabama, and New Jersey area. Information was also obtained that an automobile was purchased in New Jersey by Muhammad. Police discovered that the New Jersey license plate number issued for Muhammad's 1990 Chevrolet Caprice had been checked by radio patrol cars several times near shooting locations in various jurisdictions in several states. So they're kind of, not really, but kind of noticing like, okay, this same fucking Chevrolet is like always in the area of where these crimes are happening. You know what I mean? Like kind of weird. But here's the thing. Even though they kind of noticed the car was never stopped because law enforcement computer networks did not indicate that it was connected to any criminal activity, and they were focused exclusively on a white van. And that's very important because this whole time during the investigation where they were trying to sniff out these guys, they told the media and they told everyone that they were looking for a white van. And that is far off from what they were actually driving. They had a blue Caprice, but police were focused on a white van, which is how they continued to escape custody because their vehicle isn't even being like, you know what I mean? Like they're not even looking for this car. They're not looking for that. They have their tunnel vision is on this white van, which allowed these boys to continue to escape because They weren't even on the radar. You know what I mean? On October 3rd, 2002, police in Washington, D.C. stopped the Caprice for a minor traffic infraction 2 hours before they shot and killed Pascal Charlotte. Witnesses at the scene later reported seeing a Caprice near the scene of the shooting. So this fucking car, again, is being spotted by people and authorities, was in the area of the most recent shooting. And no one thought, oh shit, this car might be our target. They did not connect the dots. And that is crazy to me. Like, I feel like a lot of these true crime cases, it's really crazy to me how, like, when we're covering these cases time and time again, how things are just being missed. Like, I feel like sometimes they overcomplicate it. You know what I mean? Like, they think about it so much and put so much thought into it that they overdo it. Like, they overcomplicate it, they overthink it, and they miss small shit. That's crazy that this car was this car was spotted by people near the shooting and was stopped 2 hours before the shooting. So 5 days later, the Baltimore Police Department investigated a dark blue Chevrolet Caprice parked near the Jones Falls Expressway in Baltimore with a person sleeping inside. The officers were concerned that the driver's license was from Washington State while the vehicle was registered in New Jersey. Although the vehicle was suspicious enough for them to investigate it and fit the description of a vehicle associated with the shooting in Washington, D.C. 5 days earlier, the officers did not question the occupants extensively, nor did they search the vehicle. You mean to tell me, this is what you're telling me, okay, that you go and investigate this car that's parked because you see people sleeping in it. So it gave you a red flag, you know, like what's going on here? The vehicle matched the description of what was given to you about a shooting that took place 5 days prior, okay? And you question these people, but not extensively enough to get enough information from them to connect any dots, and nor did you think to try to search the vehicle. So authorities were quick to issue a media alert to the public to be on the lookout for a dark blue Chevrolet Caprice sedan. The same fucking sedan that they had earlier that the police officer let go. Now you want to send a fucking media alert out to the public to be on the lookout for the same fucking car that you just let go. Come on, man. This is America. This is the shit that happens in America, y'all. So this was a major change from the mysterious white box truck looking van that they initially had their mind on. A breakthrough in the case came when the snipers themselves provided a lead. A caller claiming to be the sniper called 911 to say that he was responsible for a previous murder, which set in motion a chain of events that led to the capture of the DC snipers.
A lot has happened in just the past 24 hours as the sniper manhunt literally went nationwide. It began with a task force phone tip from someone claiming responsibility for the sniper killings and a September shooting in Alabama.
So investigators headed to Montgomery, where they recovered a fingerprint from the shooting scene, a neighborhood liquor store. That fingerprint belonged to 17-year-old Lee Malveaux.
Now, detectives quickly traced Malveaux to a home in Tacoma, Washington, where he had lived with 41-year-old John Allen Muhammad. Investigators carefully searched the home early last night to removing a tree stump with bullet fragments in it.
The two were tracked down and arrested while sleeping in their car at a highway rest stop in Baltimore, Maryland. Inside the car, the rifle that they used to commit the shootings was found in the vehicle because they decided to search it this time, along with evidence of how the vehicle had been modified to facilitate the shootings. Lee Boyd said in his initial confession, "You keep your enemy fortified, you stretch them out, and you make them weak." If the police didn't catch them and the government refused to pay them, they would keep killing until the authorities were forced to declare martial law, which martial law means they're going to bring in the military to fucking handle your ass. Lee Boyd also said they would tear this side of the country up with the economy, tear this whole faction up, tear this whole section of the country up. So as you can see, these boys were looking for destruction. They were looking to tear shit up, do some damage, get shit done, and that's what they meant when they these boys were looking to really shake some shit up in the United States, man. But he later changed his confession from being this cold-hearted, sniper guy to a more sad I was manipulated story, saying he cried after Muhammad laid out the plan and demanded his compliance. He sat alone in a bathroom playing Russian roulette with a .22 caliber revolver. He then stated, and I quote, "I loaded one round, spun it, put it to my head, fired." But obviously the gun didn't go off. He didn't kill himself, and he thought that was his sign that he needed to participate in whatever was being planned. Regardless of how he became involved, nobody really cared. You know what I mean? Everyone was just relieved they were finally caught and wanted to see justice. These two were facing charges from multiple different cities, which made this case complex and interesting. Because this case was so worldwide and gained so much media attention, one would use the opportunity to be in the spotlight. And that's what someone did, because of fucking course he did. Before the trial, Chief Moose engaged in a publicity tour for his book on the sniper investigation, including appearances on Dateline NBC, The Today Show, and The Tonight Show. It's fucking ridiculous. You have people that really do this. You know what I mean? Like, you had two people who were outsmarting you and your entire police department, but you think it's a good idea to carry your ass onto talk shows. So Assistant Prince William County Commonwealth Attorney James Willett told the Washington Post, and I quote, "Personally, I don't understand why someone who's been in law enforcement his whole life will potentially damage our case or compromise the jury pool by doing this." Because again, it makes absolutely no sense for you to carry your ass onto all these talk shows and to promote a book when you couldn't catch these people. They were outsmarting you and your entire police department. So whatever. Muhammad and Lee Boyd were each found guilty of murder and weapons charges. The jury in Muhammad's case recommended that he be sentenced to death, while Lee Boyd's jury recommended a sentence of life in prison without parole instead of the death penalty. In March 2005, the Supreme Court ruled in Roper v. Simmons that the 8th Amendment prohibits execution for crimes committed when under the age of 18, which was huge because he committed these crimes, Lee Boyd did, when he was 17, so that means he would be ineligible for the death penalty. In the light of his Supreme Court decision, the prosecutors in Prince William County decided not to pursue the charges against Lee Boyd. Prosecutors in Maryland, Louisiana, and Alabama were still interested in putting both Lee Boyd and Muhammad on trial. At the time of the Roper v. Simmons ruling, Lee Boyd was 20 years old. He was eligible for the death penalty and was held at Virginia's maximum security in Poundwise County. Muhammad's death penalty was declared by the Virginia Supreme Court on April 22, 2005, when it ruled that he could be sentenced to death because the murder was part of an act of terrorism. This line of reasoning was based on the handwritten note demanding $10 million from the government. The court rejected an agreement by defense lawyers that Muhammad could not be sentenced to death because he was not the triggerman in the killings linked to him and Lee Boyd. So he's trying to get out of the death penalty by saying, I never shot anybody. It was the 17-year-old who did it. So therefore, I cannot be put up for the death penalty. But who the fuck is going to buy that? On September 16, 2009, the Circuit Court Judge Mary Grace O'Brien set an execution date by lethal injection on November 10, 2009. His attorneys petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to postpone his execution, but it was denied. They also requested clemency from Virginia Governor Tim Kaine, but this was also denied. Muhammad was executed by lethal injection at the Greensville Correctional Center in Jarrett, Virginia, on November 10, 2009. The execution procedure began at 9:06 p.m. Muhammad was pronounced dead 5 minutes later. 27 people were present for his execution, including family members of the deceased. Lee Boyd described how Muhammad intended to train boys in weapons, like how he trained him. Finally, after the training was complete, Muhammad would send them across the United States to carry out mass shootings in many other cities, just as he had done in Washington and Baltimore. These attacks would be coordinated and be intended to send the country into chaos that had already been built up after the 9/11 attacks. That is just absolutely crazy that these people, they were planning to just cause absolute chaos across the world. Like, that's crazy, man. Like, that's scary. It's scary that people like this build up this anger and resentment to the point where they just want to hurt and kill people, like just innocent people. Lee Boyd was convicted of capital murder in Virginia and sentenced to life in prison without parole. But a series of Supreme Court rulings and a change in Virginia law gave him the opportunity to seek parole after serving just 20 years. The Virginia Parole Board rejected his request, finding that he should remain because he was a risk to the community and he should serve more than just 20 years before being eligible for parole. A memorial to the victims of the attacks were built at Brookside Gardens in Wheaton, Maryland. An additional memorial was constructed in 2014 in the Government Plaza of Rockville, Maryland. The impact of the DC sniper attacks echoed far beyond the immediate victims, leaving a lasting impression on the community and law enforcement. They will forever go down, whether you like it or not, in history as one of the more sinister and creative serial killers of all time. But that is the case on the DC snipers. Truly insane case, man. But let me know what you think down in the comments below about the DC snipers. I'm very curious to see what you guys think about them and what they did. But that is going to do it for me in this video. I hope you guys did enjoy this one. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I will catch all of you guys in the next video. Peace.